Failure to address this debt crisis means not just 47% of Americans, but every American gets hurt.
That was Republican Congressman Paul Ryan speaking after a fresh setback, of course, to U.S. budget talks. Here to tell us what this means for equities, Richard Hunter, head of equities at Hargreaves Lansdown. Hi there, Richard. How's this lack of a resolution going to hit equities?
Not very well, I'm afraid. The UK market is looking rather weak in the hours of trading up until now. Obviously, quite apart from the inevitable dissent between the Republicans and the Democrats, there also seems to be some dissent even within the Republicans themselves. And what happened after hours in Wall Street last night, admittedly, it's much quieter trading, so volatility is exacerbated, but the market fell about 300 points. And even as we speak now, Dow futures are pointing down about 170, so this afternoon could be a bit messy.
But if you want to stay in equities, what should investors be doing ahead of this cliff?
Well, we've been saying now for some time about considering the bottom-up approach. It's a very boring strategy. There's no excitement there. We're talking about the Unilevers, the Reckitt's, and so on. Worldwide businesses, strong brands, cash generation, decent dividend yield, defensive. Yeah. And for any investors with that element of caution, a bottom-up approach will have worked well this year, and no reason why it shouldn't.
I mean, I know you've been saying it for a while. You've been saying it on this show for a while. Let's turn to specifically UK Q3 GDP downward revision. Is this going to hit the FTSE, or is the global nature of the index going to help?
I think what we often try not to forget is that the FTSE 100 isn't particularly a good barometer for the UK economy, housing as it does so many multinational companies. If you look at the FTSE 250, it's a much more accurate barometer of the UK economy, and that has underperformed the FTSE 100 today, partially in response to that GDP revision, but also the public sector debt, which isn't a good figure either.
Yeah. Want to get your view specifically on the banks. The Banking Commission in the UK now says reform plans should be tougher, electrified ring fences. What do you make of this?
Yes, it's one in a long line, isn't it? We're still ongoing with LIBOR, we've got interest rate swaps, we've got financial probity investigations, money laundering and all the rest of it. And regulatory concerns have overhung the bank for the last year or so. Now, the bank, just within 2012, the banking sector has actually done pretty well. If you look at Lloyds, for example, it's up about 80%. It's been a good trading stock. But to put that into perspective, if you look at Lloyds over the last 5 years, they're down 80%. So regardless of the fact that they've had a good fillip this year, there's still a long way for them to go to regain their previous highs.
So what are you saying? Is it, okay, it might be a risky bet, but you're saying if you want to take on that risk, keep buying these big banks?
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that of the UK banks, HSBC is probably the preferred play in terms of its financial strength, its stability, its diversification, both in terms of product mix and geography. That tends to be the one which is probably most favoured because of its size and strength.
All right, Richard, thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Richard Hunter. On to our chart of the day. Shares of Aéroports de Paris, ADP, the operator of Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports, down more than 6% today. That is after it cut its medium-term earnings target late Thursday. In commodities, US crude pulling back after 5 days of gains. London Brent crude for February delivery seeing a second consecutive day of losses too. Those moves coming after US budget talks hit a fresh setback, as we mentioned earlier. Today marks the start of a new cycle in the Mayan calendar, or the end of the world, depending on your perspective. Thousands of mystics and New Age hippies descended on the ruins of Mayan cities today to usher in a new or the end of an era. The event was commemorated by local actors performing in the Mayan Culture Festival. And I'll leave you with a picture of Google's front page today. There you go. They've used a stone carving to portray their logo to mark today's so-called Mayan apocalypse. That's it from us. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.